Good morning, St. Thomas. If y'all don't know, my name is Luke Bellos, and I'll be graduating from Johnson High School about this time next week. In my 4 years at Johnson, I've been a four-year letterman on the tennis team. I've been in NHS for 2 years, and I'll be graduating summa cum laude. Thank you. I've also been going to this church since I was born. I was baptized in this church. I was confirmed in this church, and I've been an acolyte at this church for as long as I can remember. So there we go. And for those of y'all wondering why I'm giving the sermon today, basically every year, Father Mike gets all the readings for every week for the whole year. And he was looking at this week's, and he was like, man, this one's hard. I don't want to do it. I'll just pass it on to a high schooler. So here we are. So, as y'all know, teenagers are prone to eavesdropping. Whether it just be to hear the latest gossip going on in the halls, or just because we have nothing better to do. We all do it. I do this as well. Gossiping has been going around, or eavesdropping, my bad, has been going around since the beginning of time. Now you're probably wondering how this connects to John chapter 17, verse 1 through 11. Well, as we observe in the first part of this reading, John is listening in on a conversation Jesus is having with God. One part of this prayer that really struck out to me was when Jesus said, and I quote, "I glorified you on earth by finishing the work that you gave me to do," end quote. He immediately follows this up by asking God to, quote, "glorify me in your presence." Now let's break this down a little bit more. Jesus is not asked to be glorified by God just because he feels like asking him to do that. He asks God only to receive his grace after he has done God's work on earth. This would be comparable to an athlete of any sport taking the entire summer off, not practicing, not doing anything, and then expecting to come out and get a starting job in the fall. That's just not going to happen. That's not how it works. You can't show up and expect to be great. Quote Greg Bellos. This goes for our lives as Christians. We must follow God's word if we want to show our gratitude for him blessing us with his grace. If we go out into the world and treat people like garbage and expect to receive God's grace, we're in for a hard life, because he doesn't really like us treating people like garbage. Now, let's talk about how we can apply this in our daily life. A lot of people in this room, myself included, play sports or do some sort of competitive thing, whatever it is. I play tennis. During a tennis match, it is easy to lose focus and let your emotions get the best of you. I am no exception to this. I've seen tennis players smash their rackets, scream obscenities, and do whatever other antics they do just because their opponent either makes a bad line call, says or does something stupid, or they're just having a bad day. I've even seen players on the pro tour do this on TV. This does not make it okay. Jesus calls us to a higher standard, and he does this by the example he sets for us. And this is seen throughout the gospel. As we saw in the children's sermon, Jesus was rejoiced when he first came onto the scene. That's not really what happened. Every town he went to, he was ridiculed, called a liar, and threatened by the societal elites. In all these cases, though, he did not retaliate with anger or aggression. He responded with kindness, and he just kept preaching his word. And that's why he is Jesus. Now, I could list off every instance where he was, ridiculed or whatever it was, but that would take a long time, well over an hour, so I will spare y'all from that torture. A lot of people get emotional and lash out when they feel like they are alone in whatever struggles they are going through. Being alone is nothing anyone wants to feel, regardless of who they are or what they are going through. Luckily, God provides us an answer for that in 1 Peter. He says that, quote, "Your brothers and sisters in all the world are undergoing the same kind of suffering," end quote. He goes on to say that after you have suffered, he will, quote, "restore, support, strengthen, and establish you," end quote. Remember that God does not only help those struggling, but also those where everything is going a-okay. Remember that God reveals himself to us in many different ways. And the last time God revealed himself to me, most recently, was a little over a month ago when, sorry, I don't have this completely memorized. just over a month ago, and me and my doubles partner, Lucas Bustos, were playing in our regional tennis tournament. So leading up to that match, we had a record of 25-3 on the year, and we were invited to play in the high school national championships. So we had a pretty decent year. After winning district, we went into region, and we played our first match, and we won our first match. We were feeling really good. After we came off the court, all of our families and friends and teammates who were there were showing us God's love and how proud they were in our performance. We were also very happy and excited to be advancing to the next round, the quarterfinals. However, what laid in front of us was the number 1 seeded team in the region who had won state the year prior. They were pretty good, and we thought we were pretty good too. And even though we played our best match, we played pretty much all year, we lost, and that was unfortunate. But despite losing, when we came off the court, all of our family, friends, and teammates showed us the same love and grace that they showed us after we had won. And that really struck out to me because I just didn't expect that, because we had lost. And that was really interesting because I'll watch tennis matches on TV, and they ask the loser after the match, how'd you feel after this match? And they're like, the crowd energy was awesome. I feel great. And that's I really understood that when that happened. And then also, another reason that match hurt a lot more than I expected it to is because every athlete knows that they're not going to be able to play forever. And that moment came onto me a lot faster and sooner than I expected or hoped it to. I will never forget the look on my partner's face after the last point ended, the ball bounced twice, and we realized we were never going to see a competitive match again. And I'm sure I had the same look on my face too. It was not fun. But despite all that, God was equally present in that moment as he was earlier in that day when we had won. And then, sorry. But that's all in the past. All right, that's done. Moving on. Let's talk about the future. Next year, myself and many other high schoolers across this country and church are going to be going to college, and many more are going to be returning to college to continue their education. As we know, all us teenagers have little to no experience outside the house. I mean, if you count going over to spend the night at one of your friend's house experience, that's okay too. But as we know, there are plenty of things we could do to get ourselves in trouble. There are lots of temptations out there in the world. In 1 Peter, it is said that it is, quote, like a roaring lion, your adversary, the devil prowls around looking for someone to devour, end quote. What does this mean, you might ask? Well, Father Mike and Reverend Allie could probably go on and on for hours about this topic, but I'm not a priest, so I'm not going to do that. I'm a high schooler. So what I took from that is that God is everywhere. He tries to bring you up and make you do everything right? Well, the devil does the opposite. He is everywhere, and he tries to bring you down. So the stronger you are in your faith, the better you'll be at resisting those temptations from the devil. Obviously, even if you're strong in your faith, you'll still be tempted. But I've already quoted this verse from 1 Peter, but I'll do it again. God will, quote, restore, support, strengthen, and establish you, end quote. This is reassuring to know that God will pick us up even if we fall. Obviously, he does not want us to give in to the temptations. But we are human, and we will err, right? And these temptations, where am I? Okay, there we go. Sorry. So these temptations are going to be with us everywhere we go, all the time, every day, 7 days a week, right? The amount of temptations we're going to receive is going to be a lot like when Jesus was getting tempted by the devil for 40 days and 40 nights. Obviously, we are not Jesus. I am not Jesus. We will fail. That's not an if, but a when, because we are human, okay? And, sorry. All right, once we go off to college, we will be hundreds of miles away from all of our friends and family. Oh, just our family. We're going to have friends there, too. I hope I have friends there. I think I do. But yeah, our parents are not going to be there to help us when we fall, right? But God will be, because he will, quote, restore, support, strengthen, and establish you, right? So on top of God being there with us and Jesus being there with us, our friends are also going to be there with us, and they're going to help us out a lot. So that is good to have. And as we know, Jesus supports the idea of having a lot of friends, because before he even went out to preached a word, he found 12 guys, 11 really good guys. Judas kind of sold them out. But unlike Jesus, I have all of my friends are really good friends, and I can count on them for just about anything. And I hope all of you guys can say the same for yourselves. And God very rarely talks to us from the clouds. And if this has ever happened to you, then congratulations, you are a prophet. However, for the rest of us, when we are going through our daily lives, it is important to keep your ears open so that maybe we can hear through God speaking to us through something or someone. Thank you to Father Mike and Reverend Allie for selecting me to speak today, and I'm excited to continue my education for the next 4 years at Texas Tech University, Recom Tech.